Hi, I'm Asto, and yes, this is actually the second video of the month. I think I gotta make something in 3D, so here is a video of me trying to make this simple souffle pancake that you can see in the middle of the screen right now. I'm not sure if you have ever tried this kind of pancake, it's really good, except I went to Japan once, and I visited this cafe that served this kind of pancake, and I ordered a regular pancake instead of this souffle kind. Like, why would I do that? Like, I'm stupid. I'm stupid. I'm stupid. Bakayoro. Anyway, I'm going to make this souffle pancake from scratch, so let's get into some cooking. By the way, welcome to Astonished Animations, the food series. So right here we have a new scene with a plate in the middle. Making a plate is pretty simple. You just add a circle or a cylinder and keep extruding and scaling. Yeah, you have yourself a plate. And then I'll start with making the pancake. So Shift A, mesh cylinder, and I'm going to come here to cap fill type, make sure it's nothing. I'm going to get into edit mode and GZ1, so the origin is at the bottom, and then I'll scale it down and then left click and then SZ to scale it along the Z-axis so it's kind of flat like that. And then I'll move it up a little bit so it's above the plate. And then I will get back to object mode and right click shade smooth. So I am going to select this edge by Alt left clicking so the whole loop is selected, and ES to scale this loop down. And then maybe one more time like this, and then hit Ctrl F, grid fill, and that's it. And then same for the bottom side. I'm going to hide the plate for a second and Alt left click the edge, ES, scale down, and ES again, and Ctrl F, grid fill. And then I'm going to get back to object mode and Ctrl A, apply scale. And after that, I'm going to get back into edit mode and select this edge by Alt left clicking and Ctrl B to bevel just a little bit like this, and also the bottom edge, Ctrl B. So now we have something like this, right? And I'm going to hit Ctrl R and add maybe 3 edge loops like that. So now I'm going to look at the bottom and select this edge by Alt left clicking the whole loop, and then I'm going to Ctrl E and mark seam, and then I'm going to go to the UV editing workspace. Now I'm going to put my mouse on top of the model and hit L, and in the settings at the bottom make sure you check seam, so only this part is selected because the seam has divided this area and this area, right? So I'm going to hit U and unwrap just like that. This time the bottom and U unwrap just like that. And now this part and this part are like 2 big circles. So now back to the layout workspace, I'm going to hit the modifier button and then add a displace modifier. Am I covering anything? No, I'm not. So displace and hit new right here, right? So now we are going to go down to the textures right here at the bottom and choose the type clouds, and we want a bigger size like this, just around maybe like that. And I'm going to decrease the strength of the displace modifier to something like a small number, just a very subtle effect, maybe 0.1. Okay, so I'm going to add a subdivision surface modifier. I'm not covering anything. Okay, subdivision surface modifier on top, not keyframe, on top of the displace modifier, and render set to 1. Now the shape of the pancake is a bit more irregular, but the edges are still a little bit too sharp. So I'm going to come here to the subdivision surface modifier and hit this triangular icon. With a triangular button selected, we can view the mesh with Subsurf in edit mode. So try and make the shape of the pancake look more irregular. Make one side lower, drag in some faces, and you have yourself a basic pancake. Now I'm going to add a little bit of material to pancake. So I'm going to add a new material for the pancake called pancake. And then I'll also add one more material for the plate, just call it plate. And then I'm going to go to the shading workspace right now. And then I'm going to add a sun like this. Hold Z and push your mouse to the top and go to rendered view. And I am going to adjust the angle of the sun a little bit so it's a little bit diagonal like that. Okay, so I'm going to add some colors to the background. So let's go to world right here. So select this background node and Shift D, duplicate, and then make sure you have the Node Wrangler add-on enabled, and Control Shift right click on this background node and drag onto the other one. So now we have a mix shader, and then hit Shift A, input, light path, and plug its camera ray into here. So now right here we have two background shaders, and the top one is the light that is hitting our objects, and the lower one is the background color. And you can look more into the is camera ray property. I think my first video did talk about this node, so yeah, maybe check that out. I'll change the background to something, let's use this color for now. I'm also going to hit Shift A on top of the 3D view and add a camera right here and line up our camera like that. Let's go to the material of the plate and just make this dark like that. Maybe a little bit less rough and more specular. And then I'm going to check screen space reflection right here. And then I'm going to go back to the render properties right here. And then I'm going to select screen space reflections, refraction as well, ambient occlusion as well. And then down here in color management, switch filmic to standard. Okay, it looks better right now. Okay, let me go back to the world shader and adjust the color for a little bit more. You know, we can change the colors anytime, so yeah, let's go back to the pancake. The reason why I unwrapped the pancake this way is because we can control the colors using a spherical gradient. So I can hit Shift A in the pancake material, Shift A, texture, and gradient texture, and then with Node Wrangler add-on enabled, Control Shift left click on this gradient texture, change it to spherical, and then hit the texture itself, Control T, to add these mapping nodes. And then I'm going to use the UVs. Okay, now just like the previous drink shader tutorial, I'll set the scale to 2 for XY and location for X and Y to -1. After this, I'm going to add a color ramp. So now we can actually use the color ramp to control the color of the pancake. With that, add more colors to the color ramp to create the base color of the pancake. Right here we have the basic colors of the pancake. I'm going to hide this plate and, you know, look from the bottom. You can see that the bottom looks a bit weird because it's using the same shader as the top. So what we can do is to actually select the pancake and add a new material, and then right here choose pancake again, but I'm going to duplicate this material. I think I hit it twice, so yeah, call it pancake bottom. Then I'm going to go into edit mode and hit L and make sure seam is selected in the settings and assign this pancake bottom material. And then I'm going to remove all the light yellows so it connects with the edges. We don't really have to care about the bottom shader because we don't really get to see the bottom because of the plate like this. So right here with the basic colors, the next thing I'm gonna do is to add a little bit of details onto the base colors. So it's getting late in here, so I need to talk in a low voice like this. And the next step is to add some details onto the base color. So what I'm gonna do is to go back to the pancake material and add texture, Voronoi texture. Control Shift click on the Voronoi. Make sure you have Node Wrangler again. So Control T when you select this Voronoi texture. So Control T, and then I'm going to use object coordinate this time, and then scale it up like a lot. I'm going to add a color ramp after the Voronoi, and then maybe push the whites towards this side and then black towards that side. I'm going to hit Control Shift right click on this color ramp and drag it onto the base color. So like this, and we have a mix node. And then I'm going to change the mix to multiply like this. I'm going to change the black of the Voronoi to some colors like this, and then I'm going to decrease the factor of the multiply by a lot. So it's just a very subtle detail. I'm going to move this up to the left side and also the white to the left side so the dots are more separated. After this, I'm going to move these nodes to this side. And if you have kept the principled BSDF, you can actually use it now. You can hit Control Shift left click onto this principled BSDF to connect it to the output, and then you can hit Shift A converter shader to RGB. Put it after the principled BSDF and then add a converter color ramp right here. And I'm gonna change this to constant. So now we have a two-step shader like this. And what I'm gonna do is to just multiply this onto the previous set of nodes. So Control Shift right click onto this color ramp and drag it onto this multiply node, and then change this to multiply, adjust the factor, and I'm going to change the shadow color. So I'm going to change this to something between orange and yellow. So now the pancake looks a little bit softer. I'm going to add maybe some more details around this side. This looks okay, so maybe go to the pancake shader, and I'm going to move this color closer to the light yellow so the edge is a bit sharper. So in the start of the video, you can actually see I added some syrup onto the pancake, and it is not done by any simulation. And this is kind of the reason why I made this video. I want to share like a little trick that I used to make those syrup. The first thing I'm gonna do is to go to the layout workspace, and then I'm going to add a plane just on top of the pancake. So I'm going to scale it down so it's roughly the size of the pancake. And then I'm going to right click and subdivide, maybe 2 times. Now I'm going to add a subdivision surface modifier, and only 1 for the render as well. And then let me maybe move myself away for a little bit. And then I'm going to add a shrink wrap modifier. Yeah, just next to my head right here. Yeah. Let me go back. Okay, just go back right here. Okay, so I'm going to set the target of the shrink wrap to the pancake, and this is actually our syrup, so I'm going to call it syrup just for now. What I'm gonna do is to shade smooth, of course, and then I'm going to add a solidify modifier, and then I'm going to increase the thickness a little bit, just like that. And then I will add another subdivision surface onto this, and also 1. Okay, this is how the syrup looks like right now. So I'm going to give it a material, call it syrup. Come down here and change blend mode to alpha blend. And then I'm going to check screen space reflection. And then I'm going to come up here and change the principled transmission. Maybe like 1. I'm just gonna set it at 1. And then I'm going to decrease the roughness. Maybe around there. Increase the specular for a little bit. And I'm going to change the color to something like this. Like a dark color like this, maybe. Maybe I'm going to increase the solidify just by a tiny bit like that. Then I'll adjust the IOR for a little bit. I'm going to put a point light somewhere around here. Maybe make the roughness even more lower like that. Adjust the shape of the plane so it looks like the syrup is flowing towards the lower side of the pancake. And then I can actually extrude these vertex down like this. You see that? It feels like it's dripping off the sides. So now the thing is, how did I make the syrup being poured onto the pancake? And it's actually pretty simple. If I go to the shape keys, right here, object properties and shape keys, I can add a shape key for the syrup. So click once for the basis and click one more for the key. So I'm just going to call this shape key pour, maybe. Go into edit mode while the pour shape key is selected, hit tab, go into edit mode. And what I'm gonna do is to actually scale this down. Go to top view and G so I can move along the X and Y, maybe around the center here. And then maybe I'm going to move these upwards, just make it a little bit more flat for now. If I actually start scrubbing through the pour shape key from 1 to 0, it looks like the syrup is being poured on top of the pancake, right? And it's pretty interesting. Maybe I'll adjust the shape a little bit more. Maybe like this, maybe like this. Let's try again. You know, it's a little bit glitchy actually, so. But I guess it's okay. In this kind of style, I think it's still okay. So to actually test the shape key, we can actually add keyframes. So at frame number 1, I'm going to add a keyframe onto the pour shape key with a value of 1. And then maybe I'm going to jump maybe 5 seconds, and this video is 24 frames per second. So 24 times 5, 120, and then I'm going to add a keyframe on a pour with a value of 0. So let's take a look. It's a little bit glitchy, but I guess it's still fine for the overall effect. So if you want to refine the smoothness of the animation, maybe you can add one more shape key to maybe control some of the vertices so they don't jump around like this. What I'm gonna do right now is to maybe add some variation in thickness of the solidify modifier. And I didn't really do this on the first render, so yeah, I'm kind of testing things right now. Let me go ahead and add a vertex group right here. And I'm gonna call this thickness. And then I'm going to go back to the modifiers, and for the solidify modifier, I'm going to set the vertex group to thickness. And then I'll go back to the basis shape key, go into edit mode and select all of the vertices. And then for the thickness vertex group, I'm going to assign a weight around 0.7. So I want to make this part of the syrup to be a little bit bigger. So I'm going to go into edit mode and select these vertices and assign a weight of 1. Not so big of a difference. So maybe I'm going to hit Ctrl I and select the outer vertices and change the thickness to 0.3. And then I'm going to increase back the thickness on the solidify. I guess you can't really see it from this angle, but on the sides you can see there is variation of thickness around this part, which is pretty nice. So now I'm going to add the syrup that is being poured onto the pancake. So I'm going to hit Shift A, add a cylinder. For the cap fill type, select nothing, shade smooth, and then give it the syrup material. Scale it down like this, and then I'm going to scale this along the z-axis, so S, Z, and then I'm going to hit S, Shift, Z to scale it on the X and Y axis only. I'm going to bring this up a little bit, maybe like this, and then I'm going to add, before that I'm going to hit Ctrl A and apply the scale of this little cylinder, and I'm going to add a lot of edge loops. So Ctrl R and kind of scroll around just like that. Yeah, that's pretty good. And then I'm going to add a displace modifier. So displace right on top of my head. If you can see that, right on top of my head, displace modifier, and then you can hit new texture, and then go to the texture tab and type select clouds for the texture. And it looks funny right now, so I'm going to change the scale for a little bit, maybe 0.51. Okay, so now go back to the displace and decrease the strength so it's just a little bit of displacement. And then I will animate the displacement of the cylinder. So Shift A, empty, maybe a plain axis. Okay, I'm going to move it aside, maybe right here, and then I'll select the cylinder and go back to the displace. And for the displace, I'm going to set the coordinates to object, set the object to the empty. Add keyframes for the empty's location so it moves down throughout the animation. Yeah, it doesn't look so bad. Maybe I'm going to move the camera for a little bit so we can actually see the syrup. Maybe the displacement is a bit too strong, so maybe even less like this. So it's still a little bit too thick around some parts, so I'm going to hit S, Shift Z again to shrink it, just to scale it down a little bit. Ctrl A, scale. Let's see. Maybe a little bit less strength. So 0.2, maybe. Okay, so yeah, so now it looks a little bit better. So you can see that the animation is kinda accelerating. So let's go back to the frame 0 so we can see our empty and select the empty, and for the keyframes, right click, interpolation mode, and change it to linear. So now the speed is constant. And then I kind of want to end the pour around frame maybe 100. So at frame 100, I'm going to add, for this cylinder, I'm going to add a keyframe for location and scale. I'm just going to hit this one. And then I'm going to scrub through a little bit forward in time and set a keyframe for location. So G, Z, and move it up like this, and I, location. So it goes up like that. And then we can also scale this down. So S, Shift Z, maybe 0. Let's try 0. So I, scale. Maybe for the scale, I'm going to move the keyframes, the first keyframe, to a little bit earlier, so it kind of gradually decrease in the scale. Yeah, that's pretty nice. So now I'm going to add that piece of butter on top of the pancake. So Shift A, mesh cube, and then scale it down, just like that. Scale it down so it kind of looks like a piece of butter. Control A, scale, and then maybe subdivide for 2 times. Okay, you can further modify the shape of the butter by adding a displace modifier like me, but you can just drag vertices around as well. Put the butter on top of the pancake and make sure it's not intersecting with the syrup cylinder. Add a simple 2-step shader with the setup shown on screen and adjust the colors of the color ramp so it looks like butter. So I'm going to add some more frames to the animation, so maybe 5 more seconds, so 120 to 240. So after the syrup stopped, I'm going to animate this butter falling onto the pancake. So I'm going to move forward a little bit, maybe around 160, and add a keyframe for location. And then at 115, I can actually move it up, just like that, and add a keyframe for location. So I guess it's a little bit too slow, so speed it up for a little bit. I'm going to add a shape key onto the butter. So plus on the shape keys, add the basis and add one more. I'm gonna call it fall. So with the fall shape key selected, go into edit mode and drag these vertices up with proportional editing, of course. So G, Z with proportional editing, maybe like that. So when the butter falls onto the pancake, I'm going to add a keyframe on the fall and then maybe move forward a little bit and add a keyframe so fall is at 1. By the way, you can place your mouse on top of these values and hit I to add keyframes. It's pretty useful, so yeah, that's pretty nice. So now I'm going to go into object mode and Shift A, lattice. Scale it up a little bit, just like that. Maybe, around the size of the pancake. And then I'm going to add some more resolution on the lattice. So maybe 4x4 by 3, maybe. And then select the butter, the syrup, and the pancake. And do not select this cylinder, just the syrup on top of the pancake. Select the lattice, Control P, lattice deform. Lattice is just like the deformers in Live 2D. They're pretty much the same, just in 3D and 2D. And then on top of the lattice, I'm going to add a wave modifier. And everything is going crazy. Oh my god, come on, why you do this to me? Oh, come on, why? So I'm going to select X only for the wave and decrease the height by a lot, 0.01. Maybe decrease the width for a little bit, maybe 1 point something. Okay. So in the animation that I showed you at the start of the video, the pancake kind of bounced throughout the whole animation, but I don't want that actually. So maybe I only want the pancake to bounce after the butter has touched the pancake. So I'm going to go to the frame where the butter touches the pancake. Right here. So I'm going to add a keyframe on the height. So put your mouse over the height and hit I. And then move 1 frame backwards and set a keyframe for height at 0. I'm going to set a keyframe maybe around 200 for the height again and set it to 0 again. So maybe a little bit sooner. Maybe decrease the width for a little bit so it bounces more frequently. Maybe move these frame so it start bouncing earlier, like this. I want the butter to fall a little bit faster, so I'm going to go to the first location keyframe of the butter and just move it higher. And then I'm going to select all the keyframes for the butter and right click, interpolation, linear. And then I'm going to speed up the butter even more, so maybe move these keyframes a little bit forward. And maybe for the butter, since it's falling faster, maybe I'm going to add more stretch to the fall shape key. So G, Z, and maybe make it like very exaggerated like this. And then I'm going to move the keyframes for the fall shape key as well. So forward a little bit more. So changes. Like that. So now maybe when the butter hits the pancake, I'm going to add a little bit of squash on the pancake. So let me add 2 shape keys on a pancake. So the basis and the key. And for the key one, I'm just going to drag out some hearts. So it kind of looks like it's getting squashed. So I'm going to go back to the moment where the butter hits the pancake. And then add a keyframe on key 1 at 0 for the pancake. And maybe set it to 1 for just a little bit. And go back to 0. So now it looks like this. And yeah, it kind of looks too much. So maybe I'm going to move these vertices a bit inwards, because it's too much around there. But now it looks not so bad. So now let me play the whole animation again. So maybe I'm going to delay the keyframes for the cylinder. So I'm going to select the cylinder and move these keyframes maybe so it's around, maybe right here. So it looks like this. So now I'm going to add some powdered sugar on top of the pancake, and it's really easy. Let me go into the pancake material and go to shading workspace, and then let me add a Voronoi texture. And Control Shift left click to preview the texture. Make sure it's at distance, and then Control T. Again, object coordinates, and then scale up by a lot, and then add a color ramp behind the Voronoi, and then swap the black and white and squash the black towards the left like this. And then I'm going to hit Control Shift right click on the powder sugar color ramp and drag it onto the last multiply. And then I'm going to set it to add. Okay. Maybe the sugar is a little bit hard to see, so drag the black of the color ramp to the right, like this. And yeah, now we can see it. So now I want to restrict the area of the powder sugar to be only the top of the pancake. What we can actually do is to use the gradient that we created in the beginning. So let me drag this add node at the very end. Just make it closer to the gradient like this. And then plug the color of the gradient into the factor of the add like this. And then move the add back to the front. And then I'm going to add a color ramp before the factor, so right here, in between the gradient and the add. So now what I can do is to move the black to restrict the area of the powder sugar, like that. So now all that's left is for me to add outlines to the butter and also to the pancake. And this part is optional, so you can stop here. And yeah, this is a pretty nice pancake, right? So let me go to the pancake and add 2 shaders, materials below, and put one under the first pancake material. And then hit new, call it outline. For this one, it's gonna be outline as well. For the outline, I'm going to use an emission shader. And just make it maybe dark brown or something. And then go to the modifiers and add a solidify. And for the normals, check flip. Materials, set the offset to 1. Now it looks weird because back here in the outline material, I have to set backface culling like this. And now we have outlines, just maybe a little bit thinner, so decrease the number. And then the same thing for the butter. So let me add one material for the butter and hit new, outline, okay. And then set it to emission, backface culling. This time maybe a color, you know, maybe this color, but just a little bit darker, just like that. And then add a solidify, go to normals, flip, and materials offset 1, and just decrease the thickness. Maybe a little bit more orangey, like this. So now, our pancake is complete. Nice. Yeah, so this is pretty much it for this video, and I'm going to render this animation, and you should be able to see it on screen right now. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you find this video useful, and next time I upload is probably next month, so I'm really sorry for not uploading that frequently, but I still appreciate your support a lot. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.